Hi, I'm Rich with Inside HPC. We're here at SC17 in Denver, Colorado, and today we're at the Dell EMC booth. But we got some folks here from VMware, which is part of Dell EMC these days. We're going to start with you, Josh. Who is VMware, and who do you help in this HPC space?
Yeah, sure, Rich, thanks. So first off, great to see you. Really good to see you. So so VMware actually, just to clarify, is a separate company, but we are actually in the under the Dell Technologies umbrella. So, and I think it's a good question about who we are, because we are very well known in the enterprise space for virtualization and a host of other technologies that wrap around that, but not so well known in HPC. On the enterprise side, we are the clear industry leader in terms of delivering both on-prem and cloud-based virtualization solutions. So why are we here and who are we trying to help? So there was a talk on Monday by Tommy Mignard from TAC, and he said something that I thought was really good. He was talking about Stampede 2, which is a pretty traditional high-end supercomputer at TAC. But he said something that caught my attention, and it really resonated with me. So they serve a pretty traditional community, but and by that I mean people that run high-scale MPI jobs that use batch schedulers, et cetera, et cetera. But what they're seeing even there at a site like TAC is that user base is expanding, and they're seeing people that need things like web interfaces, REST APIs, different approaches to consuming compute, and it's because there are a lot more I guess consumers is the best word, of HPC cycles, life sciences, even the humanities now. He categorized it as high-end versus broader science. So what I would say is VMware is really about helping that broader scientific community extract more agility and flexibility from primarily their on-prem resources, although we also work off-prem.
Thanks, Josh. I want to ask you some more about that in a second. But Martin, I have a question for you about what, you guys have a product now in this space. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so at VMworld this year, we recently announced vSphere Scale-Out, which is a new addition to the vSphere product line that targets the big data and HPC market. This basically is a new addition that has all the core capabilities that are common in HPC environments, but at a significantly lower price point for the HPC market.
That's a fully supported product, so I can, I get support from VMware, and even if the hardware is from, some other kind of vendor?
That's correct. We fully support the product, and we work with our broad ecosystem of vendors. Pretty much any partner that is supporting our traditional vSphere product line would also support vSphere Scale-Out.
So Josh, you and I have been talking about virtualization and HPC since we were at Sun. Before that, so the 2000 upper numbers there. What's changed since the beginning? Was it just a notion, and now it's, what would you say?
Yeah, so part of it's been an evolution, and I think performance obviously is critical for HPC. So we've been evolving our performance story over the last, say, 7 years or so, doing things like driving down InfiniBand latencies to the point where we can actually deliver really good IB performance at the scale that we've tested. So that's one thing, that's table stakes for getting people to listen to you and understand the value prop. I think there's still some challenges when cloud is mentioned in an HPC context. The sort of unadorned cloud, it always means off-prem. And what we're talking about here is primarily the ability to essentially become your own private cloud provider. And that's still somewhat of a new story for people. I think OpenStack helps people with that. We have an OpenStack distro if people want to do that as well. But as we evolve into that, I think there's more acceptance of the idea of using virtualization and more understanding of not just the fact that the performance overheads are very, very low at this point in many cases, but an understanding of what the values are if you actually do virtualize.
So Josh, this begs the question, maybe I should have started with it. Why would I want to virtualize HPC?
Why? Yeah, so we have a list of reasons, and that list has been well validated with customers. We have customers that are doing all of this. And the answer really depends, in terms of ranking those reasons, it depends on the customer, what their pain points are, but let me just give you a few just quick examples. A very, very simple one is if you look at a typical bare metal HPC deployment, you've got a very homogeneous environment. And in particular, you have a very homogeneous software environment. They lay Red Hat XYZ down across the cluster and that's it. That's becoming an increasingly difficult position to maintain. As I said earlier, more and more entrants are coming into the HPC. In an academic environment, yeah, we're seeing the traditional sciences, but we're also seeing life sciences, we're seeing, which is a relatively new entrant, but we're also seeing social sciences and humanities. Those folks have different requirements for software, so being able to deploy a set of virtual machines onto that cluster, where it's essentially a bring your own software stack model, where you can run Windows and different versions of Linux together at the same time on that cluster, is one really big thing. Once you've gone into the whole VM abstraction, the fact that you can now have security separation between workloads, so if you're doing clinical research, for example, we want to pack those machines as tight as we can, so we're using all the cores, but we need to keep your workloads and my workloads separate. So the VM abstraction allows your VM and my VM to run on the same hardware, but to maintain that separation, and also fault separation. If you fill/temp in your VM, that's not going to have any effect at all on mine, whereas in a bare metal environment, you could bring down 20 other jobs, and as the core counts go up, that gets even worse. Those are just two simple examples, but a lot of agility and flexibility is really what the answer is.
Okay, I get it. Well, Martin, a question for you. We've learned about why virtualize in HPC. Why VMware? What would you say?
Well, VMware is the industry leader in virtualization. We're one of the first. We are the first to virtualize x86 workloads, and we have the broadest ecosystem support across the industry. We have the densest VM capabilities out there, so you can put more VMs on each server, more so than any of our competitors. And we also have a better security model than any of the other hypervisors out there. So a lot of good reasons.
Yeah, let me add something. So I totally agree with everything that Martin said. The other thing to point out is that when people think about virtualization, especially in this space, they think about VMs, and that's about as far as the thinking goes. VMs and the hypervisor are just the beginning of what an actual, real, full-blown virtualization platform is. We're talking about virtual storage, virtual networking, monitoring capabilities, even things like chargeback and showback. The kinds of capabilities that are used in enterprises, what we're finding more and more is that there are folks within the HPC community that are looking for that sort of production level experience that you get on the enterprise side, and they want to bring it into the HPC side to make it more, as I said, more production quality.
Well, as you know, Josh, I'm kind of a hardware guy, so today's machines, it seems to me, are getting more and more heterogeneous. Not just x86 processors, GPUs, FPGAs. Do you guys have a role to play in that kind of machine?
Yeah, so for sure. So you can absolutely use GPUs and FPGAs, et cetera, other accelerators on our platform. So you get the benefit of virtualization and all the flexibility that we talked about, but you also get direct access to that hardware for high performance. And in fact, we've done some interesting work with NVIDIA. They have a vGPU abstraction that they've created with us over the years that's used for virtual desktops for delivering accelerated graphics. But they've recently expanded that so that it also deals with CUDA applications. So we're now at the point where you can take, say, a P100, you can logically carve that up into pieces and then hand off pieces of that GPU, of that P100, to different VMs. In the cases where you don't have users who need have very high demand, where they need a full P100 or multiple P100s, which we can do as well. And we also, Martin mentioned, we've done some things at VMworld, which is our big industry conference. One of the things that we did a tech preview of is actually live migrating, so moving a running VM from one machine to another while having a GPGPU application actually running on it. So yeah, absolutely embracing those capabilities. In fact, in terms of hardware, Dell just actually announced a new dense GPU server. The cool thing about it from my perspective is that it has NVLink connecting those 4 GPUs, which means for us, from a virtualization perspective, when we put the hypervisor on it, we can actually deliver high performance with peer-to-peer, or what NVIDIA calls GPU Direct. So pretty excited about that.
Kind of a wrap-up question here. I can't let you go without asking about what's next. What's the future? You got a product now. What's up?
Yeah, so I guess frankly what I would say is we have all of our ducks in a row. We've got the performance in good shape. We've got customers, and what we really need to do is start turning this into repeatable solutions that our folks, the Dell folks, and other vendors can take out into the world and actually demonstrate material success with it. That's where we're going. It's still early days, but that's definitely the next step.
And if I can just add to that, I mean, we're constantly going to keep innovating on our product. We're looking at adding more and more support for GPUs. That's a hot area now. Containers is another hot area, and we're just going to keep pushing the limits of what you can do in terms of virtualizing, offering private cloud and hybrid cloud capabilities. Working with our ecosystem of partners, and really making this a great thing for everyone.
Well, hey, thanks for sharing, guys. I think this was a great discussion. I'm looking forward to see more about VMware in HPC.
Thanks, Rich.
Great.
Good talking to you.
Appreciate it.